Right, we're up and running.
Mate, we made it.
Happy. We've only been doing this for a month and a bit now, and it only took us 23 minutes to get on this time.
Well, sorry if anyone's been waiting around and they're jumping on. Maybe they've all abandoned us by now and go, these blokes have not turned on. But hopefully, if anyone's dialing in, thanks for dialing in. We're a bit late today. Some technical issues at my end. Andy saved the day. But welcome to Wine and Wisdom on a Friday, where Andy and I get to debrief the week that's been. Me from a property point of view, 20 years in the property market. Andy from the finance world, share market, 20 years plus in there. For those who are joining us for the first time, welcome. For those who are returning, welcome back. Hopefully we've got our technical issues out of the way and things are working right now. Here we go. You beauty. We've got 20 watching or 21 watching. Thanks for your patience, gang. Hopefully everything's okay. So chuck a comment in the feed, everyone, if you're here and hearing us loud and well. I'm feeling a bit nervous now with our technical abilities. So there we go. Oh, David, how's time, boys? Damien's here. My love is here too. Ali, how are you? Good to see you. Anyway, we're live, which is awesome. We spent today preparing some stuff too, Andy, which was excellent. But all right, let's do this thing. Welcome. Our Friday debrief. We'll keep this one a bit shorter today rather than an hour conversation. We've got sort of 35, 40 minutes to sort of crunch it in and do it maybe, but you never know. We might just go over time. Yeah, what's in store for you, Andy? What's going on, mate? You know, listen, in the last week or so in the real estate world, a few little things popped up, but I know you and I have been having a chat. Thanks, Cameron, for the shout out. You and I have been having a chat, you know, lots of talk about the stimulus ending from the government and, you know, business owners and investors getting ready for that and, you know, maybe planning in advance. So, mate, yeah, what's happening from your neck of the woods, buddy?
Mate, well, I reckon there's quite a few things that, and we're spending a lot of time thinking about it now, is that it's sort of Happy New Year, I should say, first and foremost, which
Happy
is
new financial year.
That's right. That's right. It has been the most bizarre financial year, you know, I've been associated with.
Has it not? Yes.
By an absolute country mile. It wins hands down whenever I compare it with anything. But so I was kind of thinking about it, and during the week I started just pontificating. Okay, well, we weren't as organised coming into this, but nobody was, because they started changing the legislation left, right, and centre. And so I started thinking, well, how do we see through this as business owners and also investors, and how do we need to start looking at it? And I've come up with some concepts which I'll go through, because I believe now that the way that we should, and for anybody who's listening is either a business owner or investor, like, stay tuned, because fundamentally what I've been putting together on my side, I think, is an absolute must hear. But my fundamental belief is that now we have to put, as business owners and investors, a quarterly hat on. And we're always talking, look long term. And I think that that's still the principle. We need to look long term, but we need to, as business owners and investors, we need to be looking at little mini financial years, like little stimulus seasons, and understand the effects of the stimulus that is, the stimulus that will be, and the stimulus that was, and how that's going to provide opportunities, and how that's going to provide challenges, and how that's going to favour people who can actually prepare for it. Because there's some great opportunity, but there's some big bloody traps in there as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, at the end of the day, like you were saying, you and I were saying, you know, and for those who are listening in, maybe, you know, chuck something in the chat there. You know, it feels like, you know, we're sort of 3 months into something weird and strange that's the first time, you know, you and I have ever experienced in our life, you know, some sort of global epidemic, a pandemic, you know, disrupting all of this stuff. But we kind of like we said today, we kind of like feel like it's our new normal, right? So people have sort of settled in. And I think that sort of, you know, probably to put it in, you know, a term, it's a false sense of security or a false sense of normal. You know, there's certainly still many people being affected very differently to maybe you and I and other business owners that are still sort of working along, and investors as well. But certainly, don't be, don't sit on sit on your hands and not be prepared for, I think, maybe some little bit of rough waters ahead, right? We've gotten through the initial shock. Everyone's come together, government team, banks, landlords, you name it. Everyone's gone, shiver me timbers. This has never happened before. All right, everyone pull finger. Let's sort of, not go to war between each other. And now really we're sort of saying, all right, well, if the government turns off the stimulus, the landlords don't have to, punt you on your rent anymore. The banks don't have to give you a free ride on your interest anymore. Everybody get ready for that potential is really what you're saying. And,
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And it's, and if not, if, not heed the warning. And it's not even for businesses that have been going well, it's for businesses that have been really struggling, or investors that are struggling as well. There's ways that if you don't, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about it, and what we'll go through is if you don't start to actually pre-plan and focus for this, you're going to either, as an investor, miss out on opportunities to recoup losses,
yes,
or investors who are ready to pounce in order to be able to take advantage of them. And as business owners, whether you're thriving, whether you're just surviving, or whether you're, bottoming out, if you don't look at these things that we're going to run through and start navigating them now, then the game could change very, very quickly for you. And so that's what it's all about. And for me, it's about making mini financial years out of the next, the next 4 quarters, effectively.
Absolutely, mate. No, that's good. Well, listen, I've got a few little, tidbits to maybe sort of kick off the night with, and I reckon sort of, giving what you've prepared some space to really dig into would be awesome to sort of spend the most of the night on. But a few things, I've already sort of covered a few of these things in my lives during the week, but it's always good to sort of recap on them. And plus show off my technology here, Andy, where we go, and hello. Hey. But, one thing that happened during the week, Westpac won against APRA. So this is quite a game changer. Westpac was being pursued by APRA for, hundreds of thousands of irresponsible lending claims, according to APRA. The first round went APRA's way, and the second round has gone Westpac's way. And every bank is holding their breath, like watching with bated breath on this one. Most people think that APRA is going to give it a good. Hey, Jace, how are you, brother? Mate, Westpac, or a lot of people think that APRA is going to give it a good nudge and maybe repeal it. But at the end of the day, I personally think that the government and the lending institutions can't afford this to go APRA's way. It's actually ludicrous. If anyone knows the details of it, it's basically saying that, lenders, they've been lending for, decades, don't know what they're doing. Yeah, now there's certainly some things I need to sharpen up on. You and I have chatted about this, Andy, but the reality is it swung way too far. And I'll show some stats in a minute. I'm going to show something in a second. And another thing, maybe we can chat about this later. For the first time in Australia's history, someone like Amazon has made a huge investment, a $500 million investment in a distribution center. And they brought forward that distribution center decision based on COVID. It was actually a 10-year plan out into the future. And because of online shopping in Australia, they brought it forward. So 22 rugby field size, manned by 2,000 robots. Get that. And you and I have been talking about, logistic real estate being extremely valuable into the future. Yeah. So
this is absolutely the next booming area as far as the commercial space is concerned. And like you say in property, mate, it's within sectors there are always opportunities. And that's
opportunities.
Very, very true in real estate, commercial included, because a lot of people say, Oh, commercial real estate's dead. Hang on, what do you mean by commercial real estate? Are you talking about commercial offices? Well, maybe. Are you talking about basic industry? Well, maybe as well. Are you talking about commercial logistical operations? Oh, absolutely not. That's one for the future.
Changing of the guard, mate. You know, I think that's one to watch. But you know, a couple of little interesting stats. You know, when COVID hit, there was quite a lot of rental listings on the marketplace come to market, and a little bit more than last year. But right now, we're sitting actually at a deficit in comparison to a year ago. There's 94,000 listings for rent and 97,000 1 year ago. So post-COVID times. So right now, you know, technically, statistically, you know, a lot of uneducated, ill-informed rhetoric in the marketplace about, you know, massive, you know, vacancies and so on. So right now, that is not the case in the Australian residential property market, which is super cool. Thanks, Tim Boyle. He's one of our buddies. We know well. He's a mortgage broker, Timmy, out of Melbourne. He's onto these things all the time. I'm always grabbing them from him.
Do the old screenshot of Tim on his social media.
yeah, Tim, good work, Tim. But this one's interesting. So, you know, see this here, which is the rolling. You know, it's not a very good piece of data, but it shows something that's interesting. This was when APRA and all of the negative gearing rhetoric was carrying on like pork chops. You know, and that was over a year and a half ago. Right now, and we actually had quite a downturn in the actual capital growth, rolling month-to-month capital growth, you know, over that period of time, you know, from sort of 2018 to literally late 2019. So, you know, right now we're just entering the first adjustments of very broad, very like not very good statistics, but, you know, a lot of people carrying on about pork chops, you know, property prices, etc. Well, they actually got affected pretty significantly when it came to the credit crunch a little while ago. So, you know, I love these sorts of things because, you know, it's always interesting to see. But the big one is we are, Andy, at 18-year lows at the ratio of disposable income to mortgage payments right now. 18-year lows for the average Australian income as a ratio of the average Australian mortgage. So, you know, it's actually more affordable now than it was as a percentage of your income to own a house today than it was 18 years ago, right now, as a percentage of income. So it's pretty interesting, you know. So when people say, yeah, property prices are going to drop 50%, I say absolute rubbish. It's not going to happen right now because
it's funny because so low. It was what we had when Tony, the old man, was on the other day, and we haven't done the analysis yet, but off the top of our heads, when he was just talking about historically when he bought his first house, when I was just not even a figment of his imagination, I think it was probably his worst nightmare at that point in time. But
there you go.
We did rough calcs in our heads, didn't we? And we actually said, well, the actual multiples don't seem to be that much different based on how much he was earning and how much he purchased the house for, which was really, really interesting. We haven't done the math on it, but I think that we really should. And
be worth doing.
Look at it.
Well, yeah, Tim Boyle is watching. So, Tim, this is a shout out to you, brother. Thanks for these, mate. I keep grabbing them off of your posts, mate. Thank you for providing sharp real-time updates, Tim. So thanks, brother. Thanks, a bit of a shout out. I just saw he was watching. So anyway, there you go. But mate, you're right. Like, it's interesting. People do this. I did this, the mathematics the other day as well. I was chatting with one of my clients and they were like, oh, my rent's dropped $20. And I'm like, all right, well, you know, when did you buy the property? It was 2018. I said, well, what was your interest rate then? It was 4.49. I said, well, what's your interest rate now? It's 3.1. And I'm like, well, hang on, let's do the mathematics. You're actually almost $85 up in comparison to when. So, and who cares that your rent dropped $20? You're actually net up in your pocket with your interest rates have dropped. So it's really interesting. you know, that's what I always say to people. Listen, don't listen to the media Muppet circus. Beat on about rents have dropped. Well, so what? Interest rates have dropped over 50%, and your rents dropped 5%. You're actually net up. Don't complain.
This is the whole bad investor psychology that can really bring people undone, and it's something that we need to sort of manage as best as we can. Because if you're always measuring from the top, you're always going to be disappointed. It's like the perpetual, Debbie Downer type of scenario.
Yeah.
Something is going to change. It's not always just going to go bang for your whole life.
No.
But if you're always measuring it from the last high, or the highest point in rent, or the highest point in your property, and you're not equalizing it over a period of time, then you're on the edge of making bad decisions, because it's not relative, and you need to be looking at the relativity of it, and you need to also be thinking about inflation as well, because ultimately, if inflation has dropped from 4 to 1, well, if you are just going sideways, then you've actually gained 3% in purchasing power.
That's it. Yeah. And we've chatted about this before, like when inflation, is more than your cash rate, or the interest that you're getting in the bank, often you got to understand that one as well. But also too, like I've had this chat, we're talking a little bit of philosophy tonight. Like I've had this chat with thousands of investors, and I'm like, compared to what? Compared to you not buying the property, so you've owned a property for 3 years and you haven't had any capital growth. Well, how much tax deductions have you had? Oh, well, I got $28,000 back in tax over that 3 years. So if you didn't own the property, would you have got that back? No. All right. Well, let's put that on that side of the ledger. How much passive income did you create? Well, I had $25,000 a year in rent. Right. Well, $75,000, $28,000. Mate, there's $8,000 worth of $103,000 worth of financial benefit, and you're crying in your soup that your property hasn't gone up in value yet. Like, are you even understanding what you're saying right here? The perspective of the total return, not just one, what I would call a vanity metric. Certainly from a property investor's point of view, mate, who cares if your property's worth 2 million or 1 million? You're not living off the capital growth, mate. You're living off the passive income. So at the end of the day, you don't get to eat the growth unless you sell it or you leverage up, and that's not a smart idea, right, Andy? So at the end of the day, you got to live off the cash flow. So yeah. But mate, listen, what's going on in your neck of the woods? I know you were, we started the night with talking about, getting prepared for some things like, right now, and I was sort of chatting to you, like right now we know some uncertainties has to occur for the economy. There has to be a moment in time in the future, whether it's instant or slow, that business owners, property investors, mortgage holders, people have to be right. Okay, mate, I've given you enough time to get ready, but tomorrow, JobKeeper's not landing in your bank account. Tomorrow, the mortgage is going back on. Tomorrow, you've got to start paying rent. At some point in the next 3 to 6 months, that's got to occur. Mate, what do you reckon? Like, how do people need to prepare? Because I know you've put some stuff together, and I think it's brilliant that you should share tonight.
Mate, yeah, look, and it's opportunity, and it's warning. And if you don't heed the warning, then potentially, suffer the wrath. And look, this is still very new, and I don't think this has been talked about at all. That if you're a business owner and you ignore what I'm about to go through, then you got rocks in your head, like absolute rocks in your head. But you've also got to flip it and understand that some of the potential warning signs and danger signs for small to medium businesses and challenges of small to medium businesses are going to be opportunities for investment and opportunities for investors. So we've almost got to look at the positive as the negative and the negative as the positive, because most of us are business owners and investors. So we've got to try and calibrate our thinking a little bit.
And opportunity for taking market share as a business owner, yeah? Like, so, if your competitors aren't ready, if they're not being smart and being prepared and like, wow, what an opportunity. Yeah.
And look, so we've talked about it. There's businesses that are that are growing, right? And oh, this is so key. I didn't even think about that for as yet, but yes, for scaling businesses that are flying at the moment, great opportunities arise for people not following what I'm about to go through, because when they don't, they're going to mix up their cash flow. When they mix up their cash flow, they're going to fuck themselves. And that's going to provide real opportunity for businesses that are sitting in a good place, who are pre-programmed and pre-planned for this, to be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So we'll jump into here, and so I've kind of labelled this the 4 seasons of stimulus, and let me see whether I can. Yep, jump in there now.
Bang, where's your picture, mate? Boom, there you are, baby.
I'm not going to hide away too much, but look, if we have a look at it, and just have a look over the left-hand side here, because we really do have 4 seasons that we need to be looking out for as business owners.
Maybe zoom in also a little bit, Andy, if you can. Zoom in, like, pinch and zoom in. Yeah, perfect, mate. Perfect. Yeah.
Beauty. So in season 1, we've just finished it, right? We've got the end of the financial year, but let's just look back at what we've experienced. And I don't want to alienate anybody, because this isn't for businesses that are just going well. This is for businesses that are skimming, and these are the businesses that are holding on by the fingertips, or businesses that are looking at remobilizing, because you might have seen some of our wine and wisdom with Dermot McVeigh some time ago, and you might have figured out how to re-engineer yourself and come back from the ashes. So if we understand that we've just gone through what I'm going to call here as the summer, right? We've come through the summer, and the summer is where we've been given job seeker and job keeper, right? So we've been given an extra $550 per fortnight per sort of Centrelink benefit. We've had increased income support. So we've had those people who've got $750 who are on income from age pensioners and alike, and Department of Veterans Affairs. So they've received their additional $750. We've got $25,000 worth of loans that have been, worth of benefit for first home buyers and for those people who are doing substantial renovations. We've been given access to 10K worth of super in many cases. We've got, the household support was of the 750.
Yeah.
The increased income support, I've forgotten what that is for the moment, but we've then had supporting business to retain jobs. So this is your apprentice sort of scheme, or where you're re-employing somebody who has otherwise been made redundant. So that's up to $1,500 per fortnight per employee. Some businesses are carving it up with this stuff. We've then got the boost in cash flow for employers, which is $10,000 minimum for this for March to June, and $50,000 for its maximum for this side, but a total of $20,000 and $100,000. And then we've got the instant asset write-off of $150,000. So
you've got mortgage pauses in there too, Andy. I reckon. That's kind of a reverse stimulus. It's not really a stimulus, but it's kind of like some free cash, really, at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I have included the ones that we can't really put a monetary value on, like the loan pauses on loans, pauses on rents, pauses on commercial rent. I haven't included all of them. These are just the headline ones for business owners at the moment.
Yeah.
And under $500 million, right? So there's a fair swag of the Australian economy. So now we've just finished that period. So as business owners and investors, we need to start to go, okay, so what does autumn look like for us? Right? Whoop. How do I go forward? Yes, there we go. What does autumn look like for us? Well, in July, September, we've still got access to 10K out of our superannuation. We've still got another payment of $750 to come. We've still got that $10,000 to $50,000 worth of subsidy from PAYG tax installment as business owners. Yeah. They've extended the instant asset write-off to cover out to December. So that's covered off in this quarter. I put it in there twice because I love it so much. We've got JobKeeper. But here's the thing. JobKeeper, supposedly, and at the moment, to the 27th of September. Right? So 27th of September is the first date that we need to start to watch. And we've got the employee assistance scheme. So for, oh gosh, I've just lost them. Not tradies, apprentices and people who've been made redundant, that 1,500 per fortnight is about to stop. So now let's just analyze that from July to September and think about your trading cycles as a business. You know, is July to September, is that a great period of time for you as a business? Is that a really bad period of time for you as a business? We need to start as business owners actually understanding where we sit and where our cash flows sit within these business cycles. And as investors, we need to be doing the same thing. We need to be going, well, where is the profitability of these institutions based on these sorts of stimulus packages? Where's the economy going? So on and so forth. So then when we take that into consideration, we go, well, so what is Santa Claus going to bring to us in the next month? And unfortunately, mate, for the stimulus side of the equation, and I'm not saying this for any other reason, I'm talking about from a stimulus perspective at this point, right, this is what's going to happen. And there's red there, but there ain't green there, right, at the moment. And this could change, right? So the instant asset write-off as at 31st of December, it's gone, right? Yeah. And in theory, it'll go back to $1,000. I put it in there twice because I loved it so much. I must have done some cut and pasting.
You have to offset it twice from before, right?
That's right. It's a double. I've actually purchased a few more cameras, maybe. So then we've got the builders. Now that's finishing up on the 31st.
Yep.
We've then got access to super. That's gone. There's no more. There's no more as far as they've got it here. The household support, that's all done and dusted. So there's no more. The boost of cash flow for employers. Now that's no longer there. So obviously things can change from a government perspective, but as business owners, we need to be going, okay, well, how do I plan for these three different seasons? Because we've just finished our summer, right? How do we get through autumn and prepare for winter? And the reason why I've called it winter is if you go over to Europe and you use that analogy of hunting and gathering and building up your resources to be able to get through the snow period. And there was a poem that my nan used to say to me when I was young, and it used to be, you have to believe in happiness or happiness never comes. I once knew a bird that chirped nonetheless when all it could find were crumbs. You have to believe the buds will blow, believe in the grass of the days of snow, for that's the reason that a bird can sing. On its darkest days, it believes in spring. And that it's a prepared analogy, because if you don't take and store for that winter period, and it may not be winter, right? So let's get that straight. But what this is it's a potential decrease in stimulus and, as a business owner, increase in tax. So if I condense that down to more simple terms, you are going to start paying taxes again where you haven't been paying taxes, or as much as far as taxes are concerned.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be given any more money or any other write-offs. So in all other things, this could be a double whammy of money that gets taken out of your pockets. Business owner, here's the key. You need to be building up a war chest in that autumn period. And you need to be able to understand that, okay, I'm going to be paying more in a period of time. And a lot of businesses, December and January are very flat months for a lot of businesses. Yeah. Now, if you've got flat months where all of a sudden you're paying wage tax and you're not getting stimulus, then that can be a really dark time. And I know that people are probably going, Andy, fuck, like we've just gone through what has been a crazy period. I get it. I can't control what's going on. But when I sat down and thought about it and really put some good thinking juices into it, I started realizing that this is the reality. Now, of course, they may adapt and change to this from a government perspective. They may adapt and change, but those people who can weather this period of time, then the new summer, right, or the new spring is going to be exponential potential. Yeah. Right? And think about it from that acquisitions, like you pointed out. Like if you have built up your war chest, and the reason why I say this is we have to be prepared as business owners, because I know how many people keep budgets, and it's very few. But all of a sudden, if you're going, oh, we're traveling along okay, and then all of a sudden, bang, you're paying PAYG tax again, which could be anywhere up to 50 grand for that quarter, that's going to take a big hit if you're not prepared for it. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, all of the other subsidies going off like JobKeeper, so on and so forth. So it might sound simple, but it's the reality of where we're going. So we need to plan for the seasons. And as an investor, we need to be watching for these things, and investors need to be watching for this part specifically, because you and I have spoken about it as in, what should a business have in its war chest? And our basic terms are 1 month, and it's a red light. You need to put more into the juice of the business. We need more cash.
Totally.
2 months, it's an amber light. 3 months is kind of the minimum. And when we say 3 months, it's 3 months worth of trading. So fixed costs, keeping the lights on, keeping your team employed, and paying taxes, right? Even if you're not got cost of goods in there. So it's your operating expenses, 3 months of them.
Yep.
That's what your war chest should be. But now we're in a different time. And here's the thing. For many of us, we've already eaten into our war chest. So we might be back here, or we might be back here, right? We mightn't have even had it. We might be back on borrowing. But this is how a really strong business needs to be for the future. So we need to have our 1, we need to have our 2, and we need to have our 3. And then we need to have our cash conversion cycle, which we were speaking about earlier today. And the cash conversion cycle, especially if we could take into consideration businesses that in December and January are not going to trade as well, right? So the cash conversion cycle is how long does it take to convert a lead into cash?
Yep.
So once you've developed the lead, and if you don't do leads in December, January, then if it's a 90-day cash conversion cycle, then you're in February, March, April, right? So you need those 3 months plus another month. And then we go one step further, and we've also got to make sure that we're planning for the repeal of the stimulus.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's a big one. So we need to make sure that we've got cash for our conversion cycle. Then we need cash for the repeal of stimulus. And then, and only then, can we be planning for profit. Like it's as simple as that. It's not the most pretty picture in the world, but as far as I'm concerned, the way that I see it is that if you're not planning in those cycles from a business perspective, then you don't be planning for profit unless you've got repeal of stimulus planned, cash conversion cycle, and 3 months in the war chest. And that's where you need to be planning. You need to be looking ahead. But in my view, as business owners, you need to be treating the next quarter and the quarter after that and the quarter after that. For the next 4 quarters, you need to be treating them as mini financial years and knowing your numbers backwards. And as investors, if we flip that psychology and we go, okay, well, what are the companies that are going to come into cash crunch time over this period? What are the companies that will survive? What are the companies who have got great mergers and acquisition potential over this period of time? And let's face it, that if we end up with a hard government stance that say, no, we're just going to repeal the JobKeeper and we're going to see how it goes, then the market's going to react, and it's going to react and it's going to have opportunity. But here's what happened in March is we weren't prepared for COVID. So very few people were able to take advantage of a big kick. But if you start planning now your war chest as an investor, and you start going, well, I'm going to start putting money away here. I'm going to start putting money away next month, and I'm going to start putting money away the month after, and you get ready to deploy those funds into the market, then you're potentially going to be able to take advantage of the kick when it happened. But the problem is, if you don't plan ahead of time, that when it comes, it's going to be too late, because everyone's going to be scrambling and it's just not going to be possible. And I think I showed a graph on one of the other ones, which shows that every time markets rebound, they rebound faster and more aggressively than what they did previously.
Well, yeah, I mean, you were talking about that, like, before. This is not the first time the government has used stimulus, broadly or specifically to create, economic activity in the Australian government. And, I've said it many times in my little lane, which is real estate. The government loves to stimulate real estate because it's a really easy one for them. Like, get people buying houses, they'll build things, and then that'll flow out into the economy. And right now, if the lenders come to the party, their $25,000 boost for construction seems to be doing quite nicely. Most land developers I know like literally have sold out of every bit of land that they have registered within the last 3 weeks. Like it's just gone out of the door. So, but you talked about stimulus before.
Yeah, but if you're not ready for it, then you would have missed the boat. So your clients who have got into some of the great deals were already in the pipeline, right? So they're already
they were prepared. They were liquid. They were capable. And this is what you and I were saying. Like once you're taking care of the downside, so you've got to make sure you've got your buffer or the war chest set aside. Well, now it's opportunity. What resources can you deploy either in investment or redeploy if you're a business owner into your business for expansion and scale to take market share. This is the time, that's
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know how I said that markets don't repeat themselves, but they're an incredible mimic. I've got another bit of gold for you, and it's trumpet blowing time, because this was back from 2000. This is back from 2012, so it's a very old presentation. But you don't need to be able to see each different part of it. But effectively, this is...
Do your picture in picture. We want to see you.
Oh, okay. I'll come back in. There we go.
There you go. There you are.
So effectively down here. So down here. I wish I could reach down and actually point. But... this was the GFC. This was actually the recovery from the GFC. Now, this is a really interesting insight into the levers that they're pulling at the moment at a government and a reserve bank level. And so what I was talking about back here absolutely came true. Like I wasn't even a peripheral visionary. I actually called it on the button as to how we recovered from this. But if we have a look at it, plus 47%. The first round of stimulus from the US in the GFC. That's a plus 47% on the S&P 500. Plus 47. That was what happened after the first round of stimulus. Now, what we've had is the biggest stimulus the world has ever seen. So as a result, markets have reacted extraordinarily quickly. So here's the interesting part. See this gray section between here and here?
Yeah.
That was plus 2%, but it dramatically dove after they stopped quantitative easing. When that first round of stimulus stopped, the market dove quite aggressively, right? Dove aggressively. Then they stimulated again, and they stimulated with more aggression. So the second round of stimulus, this green one, was actually a larger stimulus package, and you can see the effect. It was now plus 10%. But look at the duration. The duration on a time perspective, because we've got time down the bottom, the duration was actually shorter. So that the effect, and then they switched it off, negative 12. Then they realized that they couldn't switch it off. So they switched next round, and next round. And what you can see by each round is it got less effect. So 16%, 5%, and then 15%. They had to put more in for a lesser impact and less time. So each round of stimulus gave them less time as far as the market reacted a lot faster, but nowhere near as much.
So from 2009 to 2013, what add all that up, that's 100%, over 100%.
40, 50, 60, 70, 80%, something like that.
Wow.
And that was based on stimulus.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess that what I'm trying to say by illustrating that is that that's the best indicator. And when they dropped that, $500 million and $500 billion injection here and in the US, you almost didn't have time. You almost didn't have time. It happened so quickly. But here, this is a real live example of what's happened in the past when they're using exactly the same tools to get us out of the same boat.
Yeah.
So maybe history doesn't repeat that exactly. Maybe it mimics it. But if we use that and we go, well, we've seen what this looks like previously, then maybe we can take some lessons. And if we're ready, we can take opportunity when these things come out. But here's the thing, is you have to be willing, you have to be ready, and you have to be willing to make a call and actually understand the risks. But this, I can see this playing out in some way, shape, or form over the next 18 months on the business level, small to medium business acquisitions, on a larger market scale as JobKeeper and things get repealed back and markets then quiver. So let's just bring out my mirror ball. Let's just say that they don't do much dabbling with JobKeeper and stimulus and tax cuts and stuff like that. And then over December, it wobbles. Our markets will dive as it wobbles, and then they come on and they stimulate in January, which is, you know what, if they do something like that, I'll be get in. They're dropping another bomb of market kick. And as far as I can see, this is the best sort of data that I can bring to the table in history to illustrate business owners, be prepared, do your budgets, do financial years to the quarter, and we're going to be running a lot of stuff for our clients in and around that. And as investors, think about the same thing. Build the war chest every month to be able to then, or cash up, some investments that you can, in order to be able to mobilize it when these opportunities arise. And so fortune will favour the brave and prepared mind in regards to that.
And absolutely, I mean, and also, I think you and I have chatted about this before. It's like you're not betting the farm on this stuff. Like it's the stuff you're willing to invest, it's not your buffer, it's not your mortgage payment, it's not your it's the stuff over and above you've prepared for. This is your investment capital, and that's what investing is about. Taking a small amount of calculated risk, understanding what you're up to, and taking a crack at it. We've got a question from Brian, and thanks for dialing in, Brian, all the way from Singapore. I know you and I have chatted a couple of times. Brian sort of saying, "Hey, Andy, what are your thoughts about the stimulus? In other countries, the US is going absolutely bonkers with the money that they're sort of chucking into their economy and the stimulus. What are your thoughts around that? At the end of the day."
Oh, geez, have you had a look at the NASDAQ?
No, I haven't, mate. That's your neck of the woods. Like trade wars. Brian's sort of saying trade wars, Brexit, etc. Pontificate.
Oh, look.
Don't
So
advise,
here's the
obviously.
thing.
Andy's a financial planner. This is not personal advice. This is an opinion.
Well, let me show you this. Was it Brian?
Brian, yep, Brian, yep.
Brian, let me show you this. So that's the NASDAQ over the last year. That's an index in America. It's actually higher than what it was before. So if we actually take across...
No.
Oh,
shit. That's crazy.
That's 45% from the bottom, give or take. And it dove 29, 30% from the top in COVID. Yeah. Tell me what has changed, Brian, since that happened. Tell me what actually changed. And the answer is they stimulated. And it seems obvious to me now, but at the time while this has been happening, I've been going, how, why? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make any sense. But it does when you consider the amount of money that's been pumped into the system. But when you then retard that, when you choke that, you can only imagine what's going to happen as far as the market's concerned. As soon as they turn off the tap, markets will go sideways or down. I can almost guarantee it. Yeah. Like, it's just not going to keep going like that. It needs some of that pain before it'll recover. Yeah. So when you talk about global markets, I mean, you haven't got more complex at time. You've got Brexit, which they still haven't figured out. And how do they figure out Brexit when they can't even all meet, which means all of them meet, and have 55 cars in a parking lot of people driving limousines who can't make decisions together, to now 2 cars that are allowed any time in the parking lot to be able to get into a hall where there's bigger distances, bigger barriers between them, obviously still can't make a decision on how it's going to look like. The ECB, it's very, very tough to see through. So, and when borders close down, and I've been doing a lot of research on history, and we're looking at World War II because it's the last time when borders sort of closed down to this degree. So what happens when borders close down? How does it recover? And one of the things is that ultimately, especially in Australia, we had to focus internally. right? Because we couldn't focus externally. Because if you think about at that point in time, it took a lot longer to get stuff out here. So we had to look at what is our internal levers that we can pull within our internal economy to move forward. So from an investing cap, when looking in Australia, you think, well, what are the stocks and what are the companies that are going to perform well based on an internal economy over a short period of time?
Yep.
And then you look at the growth ones that are going, okay, when the borders start to open up, what's the expansion of these companies over time? I have got a theory that I'm happy to share, but it's a theory, it's not advice. But I honestly believe that Amazon, Google, Facebook, Tesla's the outlier here, but Jeff Bezos, if I didn't say Amazon, if you put a small part of a portfolio into what I call the new super giants of the world, one of these companies is going to be like Fifth Element. It's going to run the world one day, or get blown up by political parties around the world. But either which way, it's not worth it. It's probably not a bad bet. But you can't see these companies actually slowing down. They're only going to gobble up and continue to eat more different franchises of other businesses. We talked a couple of weeks ago about Bezos and the boys actually buying up Zoox, which is the Australian CEO, fully automated electric car of the future. So they're Amazon are now, doubling down into car tech. Like these boys are all, and girls, I shouldn't discriminate, these people are literally trying to dominate the new future, and one of them is going to do it. And it's interesting because we always think that we've missed the boat, right? We always think that, if only I could gotten into Apple when it was $1 a share, and now it's $1 trillion stock. Well, I almost have the opinion, and this is my opinion, right, is that you might buy Apple as just short of $1 trillion stock, but if Apple is the one that ends up cornering these other opportunities, then it's a bargain 20 years from now. And having a basket of some of these companies that will potentially rule the world one day, and I say that tongue in cheek, but also with a degree of conviction, is also, a reasonable decision to make, as long as you're not betting the house on it.
Well, mate, it makes sense, and you and I talked about these larger companies too. Some of them, producing extremely good dividends, like we love that, like a bit of cash flow as well as some growth. But also, some of the people I've chatted to and inside of these businesses, the Microsofts of the world and the Amazons of the world, like, there's only two choices when it comes to certain things in the whole entire world, So, it makes sense, mate. Some of that conversation makes sense. Brian said, thanks, fellas, but, I won't hold you to taking financial advice over wine on Zoom. So thanks, Brian. No, good, mate. Good. That's awesome. So Ali asked, how does all of this stimulus stuff maybe, apply to real estate? And Ali, it's in the same vein, certainly in the real estate space. Andy wasn't quantifying before about the idea that people have got mortgage pauses and rental pauses and things of that nature. So right now, again, this next sort of 3 months, to 6 months will show at some point. The mortgage pause has to come off. People have to start their mortgages again. The rental assistance has to come off. People have to start their rental assistance again. At some point, that turbulence, that issue has to be worked out. And, in the same vein, if you're an investor, an opportunistic property investor, there's probably going to be some good opportunities floating around. If you're well ready, if you're cashed up and you're finance ready and so on, for those who have got the capacity, deals will be floating around. And so, same thing, but just in a different swim lane, really, at the end of the day. Don't get caught. If you are a property investor right now, you should be squirreling a bit of cash away, maybe a bit more than normal. Maybe your rents will be a little bit turbulent over the next 3 to 6 months. And, maybe you need to budget for that. We call it a buffer. In Andy's language, he calls it a war chest for property and for business owners. But it's the same idea. You've always got to have an amount of money set aside for, things that sort of don't go your way. So certainly, Ali, the same ideas apply when it comes to the real estate game for sure, at the end of the day.
So. It's pragmatic optimism, I think, if you were to sort of term it. You've got to be systematic.
That's a good one, mate. We'll have to trademark that one. Pragmatic optimism.
Pragmatic optimism. What the hell does that mean? But I think across the board, the message I think of tonight is really don't overextend, build for contingencies. And this message is always the same, but this is just with a few shorter term seasonal trends that we know are going to happen. But just exactly when and how extreme, we don't know. But it's tuck it away, be prepared to pull the trigger, and understand what that trigger looks like.
Yeah.
And as business owners, start budgeting for this and doing the same, storing it away, look for opportunities, be ready to pounce, understand, what those opportunities are, but also get ready for a bit of a winter if you're somebody who doesn't do a lot of business over December and January. And for me, that's the big one, because as business owners, we got our heads down and we are working hard right now. I don't know a single business owner out there. I don't know any business owner who is not flogging themselves like a dead horse at the moment. Bad analogy. I'm sorry for the horse people out there, but we're working hard across the board. And sometimes you get like this, you get the tunnel vision, and then you think you're doing well because the bank account starts to go like that. And then you go, oh, fuck, December. Oh my God, BAS. Because let's remember about BASs. BASs are asked for 3 months after effectively they have been realized. And so watch that double whammy, because September BAS, or September to December, which is going to be the first round of BAS, ain't going to hit until the new year. And then you might have a slow trade, a tax bill, and all of this stuff compiling. So just start to be pragmatic and optimistic.
Yeah.
Pragmatic optimism.
Mate, I think that's a good line to finish on. I think that's a good theme of tonight's Wine and Wisdom. The pragmatic optimism of, making sure you take care of house, but also, look into the future. Jacinta said winter is coming, a Game of Thrones. Build
the wall. They're building it around Mexicans down in Victoria. You might be interesting. Start. If you're actually liking this, start banging on the like and the love symbol down there, just so that we can actually see that you guys are watching and not asleep out the back.
Give it some thumbs up and a bit of love in the chat, gang. But yeah,
maybe you and I should come on in costume next week, and you can be Jon Snow, mate.
Yes, indeed, mate. No, excellent. Jace gave us a shout out. Everyone's given us the thumbs up and a bit of love on the chat, mate. So thanks, gang. Really appreciate your feedback. Andy and I love doing this debrief, and the mad idea came from us regularly connecting each week. Certainly when COVID came around, we were sort of supporting each other as professionals and trying to make sense of it all. And then we thought, well, our communities and our tribes that we support would probably love this stuff too. So it's really good to get some feedback and support from you guys, and let us know too in the chat, or in some messages. What do you want us to chat about? 20 years in real estate for myself, 20 years in banking and finance and shares for Andy. We're not we don't know everything, but we know a few things about a couple of things that can be very useful for everyone. So give us some feedback. So all good. So, mate, fair few good shout outs there. Jace O'Neill said thanks very much. Jacinta said she's just over the wall from Victoria in South Australia. So yeah.
You're safe.
COVID round 2 coming, says Jace. So, and Brian says thanks. So I think we'll leave it there, Andy. I think that's awesome. Sorry for the technical disruption this evening, but thanks for everyone dialing in. And Andy, as always, mate, great to get a bit of a debrief with you, brother. And always nice to see your great mind at work. So until next week, enjoy the rest of your wine, mate, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. All right, take care. Thanks, everybody.
See you.
Bye now.
Chin, chin.